Welcome to Kings of Kimuras, your one-stop podcast for everything from mats to the stars. Join us as we dive into the heart of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, explore the thrills of MMA, and groove to the beats of music. But that's not all. We're also venturing into the unknown, discussing aliens and the mysteries of the cosmos. And of course, we'll be shooting the breeze, sharing stories, and laughs along the way. Get ready for a wild ride from a universe of topics. Strap in and prepare to explore the world of BJJ, MMA, music, aliens, and more. Let's roll.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Kings of Kimura. It's been like quite a minute since you and I have done a podcast.
For sure.
I have one that I haven't released. I just haven't edited yet, but I did one with Edgar, and we actually like touched on some of the alien stuff, you know, that we have in our promo, but we haven't ever talked about.
Yeah.
But it's been so long since we've done one that we can like go back and discuss the ADCC and CJI, which has like now been almost a couple weeks. Right.
Yeah. We've had some time to digest from just a crazy weekend of grappling.
Yeah. So the CJI, let's talk about that first, because honestly, between the two, I think that's the more exciting event that happened. I didn't get to watch either one of them live. You went to ADCC, but just watching it as a spectator here in the gym, it was definitely like way more exciting.
Yeah, I think, obviously, Craig kind of took away the most exciting competitors in the in both weights. You know, you got like Nicky Rod. I was really impressed with Levi's performance, man. His guard was looking really, really solid, and it kind of depends on how you score the matches or like what the criteria is. But I thought that he had a good shot at winning the whole thing. Like the final match, I could have seen it going either way, like either for Cade or for Levi. It just kind of depends on how you interpret the rules. But yeah, I do like that rule set. I like the rounds. You know, you get a little bit of a rest in between. You can come out firing for that next round. So it was awesome.
You know, speaking to one of the judges, like prior to the event, he was kind of telling me that it was kind of ambiguous of the rules, but the main thing that they were wanting people to look for was the one that initiated the attack. So like if you initiated the guard pass and somebody shot for a submission attempt, as long as it wasn't like a deep submission attempt, they didn't even count that for the other guy, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And when you look at like, you know, the amount of times that Cade like entered to pass the guard or initiated that, you know, it was like almost every single time, you know? I think had Levi chose to, you know, at least engage on the feet a little bit more and maybe like, you know, I know he was like concerned of the takedown and stuff, but like I feel like as a guard player, you have to be willing to initiate some sequences on the feet just to get a hold of the person. You know?
Yeah, I saw him in his match with, I think it was Ty, where he almost swept him with like that X guard, you know, that classic X guard sweep where he had the legs shelved on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And, you know, even some of the commentators were like, oh, like he just kind of let it go. Like you would think that he got his leg all the way up, he's going to try to chase the sweep, but he ended up just dropping back and playing guard again. I just think that was part of his strategy, was to just stay on bottom and try to stay active from the bottom. But it's just hard, especially when you're playing supine guard, because you are waiting for them to initiate. If the person decides that they don't really want to initiate and step into your guard, it's going to be really hard to kind of get anything going.
Yeah, if you look at the Rotolos, I would imagine like their highest percentage finishes is going to be like submissions with chokes, right? Either getting to the back or the darce or anacondas. And if you play supine guard, that's really difficult for anybody to ever make that kind of attack happen.
For sure.
And if you can take away somebody's like number one way to submit you, I'm not saying that they're not capable of other things, but Like, I guarantee you, if we were to like pull up a list of like the amount of subs they hit with like some type of a front headlock position, it'd be way higher than any other sub.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a testament to their style, right? It's like very wrestling on the feet heavy.
Yeah.
And I mean, they can still shoot it even if you're playing supine. You know, we've seen both of them shoot darces from when the person's playing supine. You know, they'll get to that leg stomp, and then they'll
dive
shoot
for
in.
it, right?
Yeah,
almost like expose their back to be able to hit the choke of some kind. You know?
Yeah, and that's stuff that you just don't see coming. You know, that's that like wild card style. You just never know what's gonna happen next. Like,
yeah, I hope that they do another weight class, maybe like, you know, even like keep it the same weight. I think the weight class is honestly really pretty good. But like have those guys on opposite sides of the bracket again, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I like how Craig did it though with the ping pong balls. Just because like it's random, right? It's like what's up to chance, you know? Let fate decide.
Yeah, that's the negative with ADCC is like they make the brackets. You know, they're like they figure out which 4 guys are the top 4 guys and they put them in the corners, which I think is great. But sometimes you can like stack a bracket towards somebody's favor, right? You know, if you're like, this guy's like a really good wrestler, we want to see him closer to the end. Let's give him somebody that's going to stand up with him, you know, and not as good on the feet, right? You don't give that guy like a leg locker.
Right, yeah, for sure. I think I will say like ADCC did a pretty good job, I think, this year of like stacking the. They always have, I think, like they stack the bracket pretty well. You know, trying to think of which way was.
A guy's like going to get a very experienced guy's going to get a very inexperienced guy the first round. You know, most of the time.
You're gonna get like who was Giancarlo's first match?
Probably like a trials winner or something.
Yeah, I was like maybe. I think it was a European trials winner. Well, Marigali got European trials winner as well. Was it was that guy that won the second European trials, Marcin, I think?
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And he that's another thing I wanted to touch on was Marigali getting thrown onto his shoulder by Michael Pixley.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal, man.
And honestly, like, you know, they're trying to frame it as though like Marigali was keeping the match tight before the injury happened, and that is just not the case at all. If you watch the match, he's getting dominated the whole time. Like, he's trying to stand up with Pixley, gets thrown. Yeah. And then
the first throw, you have to like argue that the first throw was more dynamic than the second one.
Yes.
Because when he threw him, he was so high in the air that there was no way he was going to post and stop that. You know, like the only way you do that is like either land flat on your back or roll all the way through. And he chose to continue the momentum and come up. You know?
Yeah. And then when he was playing guard, Pixley hit him with that signature pedigo knee cut. Just that slice right across.
Slick, honestly. You know, I watched, for me, I didn't watch ADCC live. I watched like a couple matches, but I always like to go back and watch somebody's, like every single match in order, you know, to see how they did. And he had a very similar style in every match. You know, he went out against Lovato, and I think the game plan was correct in going out there and like trying to frustrate Lovato and force him into a stand-up type of position. But Lovato is like so crafty that he understands like the guard pull sequences as well, and he knows how to like play into the referees of like, hey, this guy's not doing anything. You know, like I'm butt scooting towards him, and he's moving backwards. So you know, it's just that classic like first year trials winner against a guy that's been doing that for 20 years. So.
Yeah, youth versus experience for sure. That's one thing we saw a lot of. I was even telling, who was I telling? I was telling Roy because he was sitting right next to me. I'm like, look at all these matches. It's like all youth versus experience right now. You know, he had like Wagner versus Mika. He had like Lovato versus Pixley. Cyborg versus Kynan. Like you had all these different matchups of youth versus experience, and like Isaac Michel versus that guy Charles Negromonte. Yeah, that was a crazy match. That was a crazy end. I didn't see that coming.
He just got caught, man. You know, like, caught in the wrong spot. Got with that knee bar. I think that's one of those, especially from a standing position, you don't want to fall and tap because it's going to get significantly worse, you know.
I know from experience that I was like, man, that looked familiar. You know, he kind of went like K guard and then went like double outside and then just hit that straight knee bar.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's like the lat knee bar too, right? Wasn't it behind his elbow or no? He was just
he had it tucked all the way behind his lat.
Yeah, and that's the worst one. You know, I say that all the time. If you get caught with that, like tap, because your leg's going to bend backwards. You're going to look like you've been sitting in one of those leg press machines, and your legs got bent up backwards.
Yeah, you fully extended out. Yeah, it's not good, man.
Yeah, you know, going back to the ADCC and like these older guys that were competing, I feel like because so many people went to CJI. Like, obviously, some of those guys get invites, right? Wagner, Cyborg, but do they make it past the second round even? You know,
right.
Like, I don't think so. But given that there were so many guys out and, like, last-minute replacements, you know, they had no real, like, challengers, you know. And a guy that, like you said, a guy that's got that much experience over somebody that's, like, never competed in front of that many people or on such a big event, you know, you've got to go out there from start to finish and like come after the guy.
Yeah, for sure. That whole 15 minutes, if it comes down to it, you got to just be in his face the whole time. I
think my favorite match of ADCC that I've watched so far was that Dorian
and the Russian guy
and Igramonov.
Yeah.
Dude,
that was a great match.
It's an exciting match. I feel like that's what I expect to see when I watch an ADCC. You know, if I go out there and it's like two guys like not really doing anything, I think they don't understand the mindset you have to have for that tournament. You know, it's got to be like you go out there and you turn it on and you're trying to finish this guy quick so that you can rest and then get ready for your next one.
Yeah, for sure. And after watching that match, I was like, man, I got to get my wrestling and my hand fighting up.
Yeah.
Because this kid was going out there and like the Russian guy ended up winning, but it was like crazy scrambled and like crazy scrambles the whole time. But again, it's that youth versus experience. Like I know that guy, it's his first ADCC and like he just won trials, but he is older. He has more experience, like actually doing submission grappling with the wrestling.
Yeah.
Whereas Dorian's kind of playing on two fronts. You know, he's got his the wrestling side, and then he's got the jiu-jitsu. You know, he does both. So,
it was interesting.
It was awesome.
It was interesting to see the Russian actually playing guard. Like at some point, he was like, "Okay, this is going to be very difficult to take this kid down. Let me work off the bottom." And then he ended up like catching him, right? It's like
he ended up like taking his back. Yeah. I forgot how he took his back exactly. It might have been off of like a wrestle up. I have to go back and watch.
Yeah, I don't remember. There's so much stuff that happened in that match. I highly recommend going to watch it. You know?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite ADCC matches was Jay and Giancarlo. Just from like they're so radically different. I feel like in their style.
Yeah.
Like Giancarlo's very calm and calculated, and he'll like get into some bad positions, quote unquote, and then he just stay cool as a cucumber and just wait for his positions, and then just slowly over time. It's that pacing of the match. He's really great at controlling the pacing of the match where he doesn't get flustered, he doesn't get overwhelmed. He knows he's going to get to his positions. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So... But Jay was all over him at first, and that's what I said. He's got the best chance at beating him early.
Yeah.
Like when you're both dry, you know, you got full gas tank, you got your best shot at beating this guy early. Yeah.
I think Giancarlo showed like the perfect way to defend that body lock too, right? It's like framing in the neck, pushing the head away. It's very difficult to keep your hands together. You know, at some point your hands just slip and you're looking to reconnect them, you know, in like the next best way. But we have Brad that trains with us, and he's like a big body lock guy, you know, like he'll body lock you from anywhere. And I've always just gone straight to like keeping his head away from me.
Yeah.
To try to separate his hands. And it was cool to see that at the highest level, you know, like that's the proper way to like handle that type.
Yeah, it just sucks with the rules of some tournaments because you can't hit them with the double frame like that, because that's the most effective way I think to
sure. Yeah, if you're just framing with the forearm, they can push that and get outside. But when you like connect your hands there, and you're not choking them, but you are at the same time, right? Because you're like pushing against as they're pushing down.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a very effective technique. For that to be against the rules is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Like you can break this guy's arm, but don't push his head away.
Yeah, don't push in his neck with a cupped hand like this. I guess it I don't know, maybe it looks barbaric or looks a certain way, but it's like, dude, what looks worse? Me choking this guy, me doing the rape choke, or me breaking this guy's arm in an arm bar? Yeah. Which one looks more brutal to you?
Yeah, and I'm sitting here trying to think well, should you allow it from the top position and the bottom position? But I think if you allow it on one side, you got to allow the other, right?
Yeah.
Then once we start adding in minuscule rules like that, it kind of makes it worse. It's harder to understand as somebody watching it. What?
Yeah.
Why can't you frame him here and not there,
Yeah, why can't you just cover his mouth?
Yeah.
I feel like that should easily be a thing that's implemented in every tournament.
Yeah.
Dude, if you're a brown or black belt, or just a higher belt in general, and you're an adult and you can't handle a smother choke, maybe it's time to consider another hobby or another profession here.
I recently saw a video where it was showing the most effective way to deal with the smother, and a guy's in a tournament smothering a guy, and he just grabs the hand and pulls it off.
Yeah.
If you really don't, if it bothers you that much, I think you should be able to move it. You know what I mean? It's not like it's glued to your face.
Right. It's not a sticky, a super sticky grip. It's just a cover on your mouth. So just grab it and peel it off if you don't like it.
That's something that we train with a lot, honestly. People are going to smother you, if you come in here. It is what it is.
Yeah, they'll frame in your neck, they'll go for the smother, they'll go for mother's milk. If you can't handle that kind of stuff, then what do you do in grappling? You know, that's part of it. You have to be able to, one, recognize, okay, I don't like this, and then number two, be able to deal with the thing that you don't like. Not just be like, oh, you can't do that, bro.
Yeah, I have a move that I do, but I only do it to people that I know. And it's like a waterboarding technique, I would say, where you have to have a looser fitting rash guard. After you've had 2 or 3 rounds, it's nice and wet. You take the mount and then you stretch it over their face.
This is the waterboarding technique.
So it really makes them feel like they're drowning, and you get a reaction out of them. I only typically do this to people that I know, and then people that when you're in mount are not moving. You know what I mean? I just do something to frustrate them. I've also done it at the police training.
Yeah.
Too, so
hey, if you guys can't handle this, you definitely can't handle a suspect.
Yeah.
Waterboard.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it will work better with a cotton T-shirt or something.
Yeah, a wet cotton T-shirt. That would be, I would get claustrophobic for sure.
Getting back to this minus 66, I'm looking at how the brackets shook out, and I see Keith Kikorian on here against Kennedy. Keith has been at multiple ADCCs, and I feel like he's gotten a pretty bad draw every time.
Yeah,
I can remember in 2019 he got Tanquinho first round,
the champ that year.
Then after that, they were like, Keith, come on, do the absolute. Buchecha first round. So it's and then of course Kennedy, who's a previous winner. He didn't win last time, right? But he placed.
He placed, yeah. Last ADCC. He lost to Pato.
Yeah.
And then the one before that, he got silver. Or no, he had silver or bronze. I think he got silver. Yeah.
Yeah, he did because he fought Tanquinho and lost.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the guy's definitely been in it, So I hope that he continues. I know I assume he's probably around 30, or maybe he's a little bit older than that, And I feel like every time he's competed, you've seen a better version of him, but everybody else is advancing too.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a bad style matchup, Yeah. Kennedy is really, really good, and his passing is really nasty. Mm-hmm. So it's a bad style matchup.
Yeah.
Like he always gets, I would say, probably the worst style matchup for him first round, like every year.
Right.
Who did he have last year first round? Was it oh man, I can't remember. I was like, yeah, it's got to be some stud like that eventually placed or something because he went out first round in the last one too, which sucks. I like Keith. He's he's really good, but that's
about,
ADCC for you.
That Diogo Pato, like,
and Diogo Hayes match and Diego
really,
Pato. Yeah, that was a good match. That was like, I honestly didn't see Diogo submitting him like he did, but he just got him so tired from the top position, and he was getting like closer and closer to each passing attempt. I'm like, wait, he might actually like end up passing the guard here, and then he ended up submitting him with that Katagatame.
Yeah, it was pretty slick.
I was like, whoa, I did not see that
he
coming.
Looks a lot better too. He's definitely like, I don't know if he's on those Mexican supplements or not, but man, he definitely looked like a much more filled out than last time.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agreed. I guess we'll see if his voice gets any deeper over time because he's got a very high squeaky voice.
Yeah. How about Dante Leon going out in the first round? That was
against Elijah.
Right? Yeah, but then he came back in the absolute.
And then beat Mika, who's the champ,
Yeah, he's lost to Mika before, right? They were same weight class even.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of impressive.
Yeah, that was and then he fought Giancarlo and had a super tight match with him in the absolute. It's like, sometimes that happens, right? That's why I like double elimination tournaments like the ADCC Opens, because if you drop a match, you got a chance to come back and kind of redeem yourself, right? So I know Dante was probably really pissed off that he lost in the first round, especially against somebody who I definitely think that he can beat. Yeah. And then, obviously going out in the absolute and then beating the champ at his weight class and then having a really tight match with the champ in the next weight class up. That's really impressive. Yeah, that's super impressive.
I think the match that I was like, I really need to go back and watch again, but the Mika versus PJ Barch, like, my understanding was they like screwed up on some points or something.
I just don't know about the decision that they made. I was like, I thought PJ definitely was engaging more, was getting closer on takedowns because, they score the whole match.
Right, not just the overtime.
So if you look at the whole match, I think PJ was dominating or at least getting closer to what he was wanting to do than Mika was for the first 10 minutes of the match. And then in overtime, Mika kind of like turned it up on him. But it's like, if you look at the entirety of the match, which you're supposed to do, I thought that PJ won it personally. I guess I could kind of see it going for Mika, but at the same time, I'm just not sure, man. I thought PJ definitely had that one.
Do you think this is one of those situations where, Craig and Kynan that had their match, or who was it? Craig and somebody else, where they gave him like a record amount of?
Yeah, it was Craig and Kynan. Okay. Yeah,
where they like wanted Craig to win, and they were trying to help him any way they could, type of thing. That's what it seemed like to me, Like even Craig is like, "Hey, that's a little weird," I feel like there's some of that happens with ADCC, unfortunately, man.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I want to be like an ADCC pusher, which I am, I believe in it. I feel like there's some corruption, at the heart of it, unfortunately.
Definitely. And if the rumors are true and some athletes were getting under the table show money, which I think Mika was probably at the top of that list because you don't want that guy going over to CJI.
Yeah.
His dad was looking at a new BMW and stuff, like pretty suspicious stuff, right? So you definitely want that kid to win. And then on top of that, it's the storyline, right? Like his girlfriend just won the Olympics in women's wrestling. Like you want the kid to win ADCC, so the publicity for the event goes up because then, Amit his girlfriend is gonna post both of them and their medals, and like people are gonna ask like, oh, what's that? Like what did he win? Like oh, ADCC, and then viewership goes way up too, right? So you know, I guess from a business perspective, I could understand why you would have Mika win that match, but just from a pure jiu-jitsu, like if you look at the whole match, I'm just having a very tough time seeing Mika winning.
And I think that's exactly how they may argue it if they ever got caught. You know, it's going to be like, well, we did this for jiu-jitsu. It's like, yeah, but you screwed this guy that, like, you know, spent the last 2 years of his life preparing to win this event, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, but credit to PJ, you know, he came back and he ended up getting bronze.
Yeah. Which is huge, right? I mean, like, it's no easy task to win a bronze medal there.
Yeah, I think that might be harder than, like, trying to win the gold, right? Because you have to, like, if you lose the match, then you have to come out from that hole of, like, okay, well, I still have to go out there and compete again, but I'm not even competing for what I wanted, what I came here for in the first place. So you have to, like, I think it's a big show of character when you go out there and, like, really try to get that bronze.
Yeah.
Because you saw, like, that one year, I remember, like, Cyborg
refused.
Yeah, he was like, nah, I'm not doing it. Like, bro, listen, forget about what, like, that's in the past, you know?
Yeah.
That was 30 minutes ago. Like, show some character and get out there and go and try and get your bronze medal. Like, come on, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very strange year, you know, for ADCC, because you had, like, these young dudes coming in that nobody knew, and they were, like, blowing out guys that had been at ADCC multiple times. You know, even, like, Lachlan Giles that, like, subbed in the Absolute. He subbed Muhammad Ali, you know, like, nobody expected that. He didn't even medal in his weight division, you know, and, like, goes out there and gets third in the Absolute. So,
Subbed Kynan.
Yeah.
Who, did he champ that year?
Yeah.
2019?
He did.
Yeah, he did. He's a 3-timer now, isn't he? That's crazy. That dude's well on his way to being, like, I mean, if Gordon, you know, like, decides to step away anytime soon, I think Kynan's probably next in line. It's probably Kynan and Nicky Rod.
Yeah.
I'd have to say.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll discuss that when we come back. All right, so we're back. We were just kind of discussing the potentials if Gordon Ryan decided to retire, that Kynan would probably be the guy to take over. You know, Kynan and Nicky Rod. I definitely feel like Kynan has the experience over Nicky Rod, but man, the athleticism is, like, clearly in the favor of Nicky Rod.
Very much so. Yeah, it's a very. I would love to see that match play out. Have they had a match before? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
But yeah, I'd love to see that match play out now. Like, you know, if they've had a match in the past, I know that Nicky Rod's gotten a lot better. He's gotten a lot more calculated with his approach. He's not just like a berserker anymore who's trying to run you over. He's definitely going to come after you, but I'd say his approach is a lot more calculated now.
Yeah. They did have a match. It looks like it was in 2019 ADCC.
Okay. Yeah,
so
that's
that would
what
have been for the championship then, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And that was a blue belt Nicky Rod, right?
So yeah.
significantly different in his abilities now. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, but it also depends on which version of Kynan shows up. You know, for ADCC, you can always count on Kynan that he's going to bring his best, you know. But we've seen who's number one, like some of these other super fights or like matches that maybe he doesn't value, quote unquote, as much. Yeah. Like you see him kind of just like take it easy or like not come at it with the same intensity that he would come into like for ADCC or some big tournament.
That's probably because at ADCC he's like peaking on his cycle. You know what I mean? And like for these who's number one, it's like you're really gonna put your body through that same torture of like doing, you know, I don't know what steroids he's doing, but like we all know that's the secret, right, in this sport. And if you're going to be in a tournament where you're going to be like, you know, competing in your weight class and the absolute, I mean, you're going to be like juiced to the gills where your body can heal itself, but at the same time, you're like peaking on everything.
He's got that Wolverine healing.
Yeah.
Like any damage you might have taken from the tournament doesn't even matter. You're just gonna heal
I think
instantly.
that's a very underrated thing that people don't discuss a lot, right? Is that like how your body feels after competing?
Yeah.
Even in like let's say you only do one super fight, your body is like banged up. There's so much stuff that's happening in there that you don't realize it.
Yeah, and like stuff will hurt that you just never expect to hurt. You know, like I've had super fights where like my like glute is all like tight for the next day. I'm like, what is that? And then my calf or like my forearms. Usually it's my forearms that I feel most of the time.
Yeah.
Just because of all the gripping and squeezing, trying to hold.
Yeah.
Like, dude, my forearms are just gone right now.
Yeah.
But imagine being on steroids and that stuff just like doesn't even matter. You're like sore for maybe like, I don't know, 18 hours, and then it just goes away.
I saw that Big Dan, he was having that rhabdomyalgia, or however you say it.
Yeah.
It's like where you're like your kidneys are shutting down, you're peeing blood. And did he do the absolute?
No, he didn't.
I wonder if that's because his body was like really beat up. I mean, you do
Probably.
the plus 99, that is like no joke. I think for sure plus 66 is hard, but when you get like guys that are, over 220 pounds, on average, they're like 250, 260, 300. That's it wears on your body.
Yeah, those guys are gigantic.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if your body's already beat up and then you're having to go out and compete against other monsters, this is not a good recipe here.
Yeah, look at Mike Perez, right? He won the trials at the plus 99, and he went out there and did it. I kind of hoped that they would, like, at least give him a hookup of, like, hey, we're going to move you down. But they did not. They were like, no, man, you want it? Here you go.
Yeah, here you go, dude.
Obviously, like, didn't have a great performance. I mean, he showed some heart. He definitely went out there and, like, did his best. But, when you're, like, a good, like, 60, 70 pounds lighter than your opponent, maybe even more than that.
I was like, probably more, man.
Yeah.
He's what?
I don't remember who he had first round, but I do remember that it was, like, noticeably different weight classes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but that sucks, man. Imagine having to compete while pretty much your kidneys are slowly failing.
Yeah. I mean, what do you do, right? I mean, if it's something, if you really wanted to compete, you're going to like push your body through it. But then the long-term effects of like, what is going to happen to you.
Guess you just have to drink a lot of water.
I don't know if anything can really help you there.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Mike Perez had Josh Saunders first round. So, yeah, it was definitely like a big size difference.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Josh Saunders and his match against Felipe Pena, which, I feel like Josh is definitely one of those guys that's up and coming. I have no idea how old he is. He looks older than he is, I feel like. You know?
I think he like definitely looks way older than he actually is.
But Felipe just kind of like really dominated that weight division, right? I mean, I don't feel like there was anybody that gave him any kind of issues.
I mean, Brandon Reed was kind of like, doing Brandon Reed things. And like Felipe had him in a guillotine and Brandon just fucking slammed him as hard as he could. I was like, ooh, you know that hurt. You know that hurt.
Yeah.
And Felipe even was saying like, yeah, my first match, I hurt in my back. I'm like, yeah, bro, I'm sure you did. That as a giant dude slamming you as hard as he can on your back. But yeah, he really impressed me. I honestly thought that he might like have beaten Gordon in that super fight. I was really thinking like, dude, Felipe might be able to pull this off and like beat him. Yeah. Because he was getting close, like getting to that bear trap consistently and like almost getting sweeps, working for that calf slicer, that like the ham sandwich. Yeah. I was like, dude, Gordon just seems to not have any answers for this besides just like try to stay on top and stay heavy. Yeah. He can't, like, there's no escape. Like, he can't even escape from this position. It's wild.
Yeah. When I was watching that match, I was like, man, Gordon does not look like his normal self. He was definitely like a little slower and didn't seem as big. I don't know what's going on with him other than the stomach thing, but like he's definitely been eating. He makes all these claims about he hasn't been eating and not being able to train. It's like, you've definitely put some size on. If you weren't eating, you'd be, 170 pounds or something,
Yeah, you'd be like
So,
my size right
yeah.
now. I'm like 190, 95. You'd be my size.
He's
brother.
definitely like eating and training and lifting. I think he kind of like, I don't know. I'm not around him. I can't really say like he's playing it up a little bit, but it definitely seems like he does that to like get people to think like, oh, Gordon's not really training,
Right,
So-
right. Yeah, it's like, dude, you don't get to be that size if you're not eating and lifting. And like,
Yeah.
I'm sure it like eating's hard for him because his stomach's so messed up. But like, brother, you're eating. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like you're not eating anything. You don't get to be that size just by doing steroids only. That's not how that works.
How dirty was that gym in New York that he had to take so many steroids, or not steroids, so many antibiotics to keep himself from like getting staph continuously,
Yeah.
Like at some point I feel like whoever was like running that gym needs to be like, hey, we've got to like shut this gym down. We need to like steam everything.
Yeah, we need
you
to
know?
like take the mats off the walls,
Yeah.
take the mats up off the ground, clean over it, under it, on the side, like clean every single part of this because it was out of control, man. Like,
Yeah.
I got staph on my leg, and just from the 10 days of antibiotics, I was feeling like, dude, this sucks. Like, I never want to do this again.
Yeah, it messes up your cardio real bad, like where you feel like you're like gasping for air when you come back.
Yeah, I like did some. I never run ever, like ever. I do other forms of cardio, but I started running just because I needed something to do, and I think that's like it. Kind of helped my cardio when I came back. I was like, okay, I definitely thought I'd be more tired, so I think the running helped a little bit. But yeah, it just sucks being on those antibiotics because, like, your gut it kills every bacteria in your body, good and bad. It doesn't have a preference. It just kills
Yeah.
it. So I was like getting bad acid reflux. I'm like, dude, I feel like Gordon right now. No matter what I eat, I'm just like dying over here. The acid reflux is going crazy. But imagine that, but consistently over time, just from those 10 days, I was like, man, imagine being on this stuff for like a month, 2
Yeah.
months. That's going to just kill like all the good bacteria in your body,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
not just your stomach too, right? Like your all the other good bacteria that resides in your body.
Well, that's why they recommend taking like a probiotic or acidophilus or something with it,
Yeah.
so that you can like still maintain some sort of gut biome that's healthy while at the same time eradicating like whatever's in your body,
Yeah, and there's like so little research that's on like your gut biome. But I did start taking probiotics with it, and I definitely noticed a big difference. I was like, wow, I'm not dying from the acid reflux right now.
Yeah.
I actually feel pretty good. So, yeah, but like, how dirty does that gym have to be? And then at the 2019 ADCC, they all got like that super pink eye.
Yeah, not just them though. It was like a good portion of the city of New York had it. I remember like reading a report that it was like, I don't know what the numbers were, but it was a significant amount of New York City was infected with viral pink eye.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a dirty city.
Yeah.
I mean, right? The city's already pretty dirty as is, and then you got guys walking barefoot off the mat and then into the bathroom and then back onto the mat.
Yeah, I'll never
Ugh, I
forget.
get the chills.
I was backstage at 2019 ADCC for like both days, and I saw people from that team, very high up people, that were in the bathroom barefoot, and there was like overflowed toilets, standing in the water, and then walking out of there and going directly to the warm-up mats and walking on there.
Like, you know what?
know?
I'm good. I'm not stepping foot
Yeah,
on this
and-
mat, dude.
And I was there with some Brazilian guys, and they were all speaking Portuguese. And I go, "Hey, what's up?" And they said, "Don't go near that area of the mat because all those guys are infected with pink eye." And I was like, "No shit." And they're like, "Yeah."
Look
Yeah,
at their
so
face.
I remember like running into one of those guys at the end of the day that I know as Craig, and he lifts up his glasses, and it's like all this stuff running out of his eyes. It was so gross.
Yeah, you could see it. I mean, there's pictures, you know. He looks like the Toxic Avenger. I don't know. Like, he's like, one eye is just absolutely done. Like, who is saying that they have like eye damage from that?
I
like
think
permanent
it was,
eye damage.
Cyborg or somebody that had a match with him, the Mateus Denitz.
Yeah,
I think it was him.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, right? Like you get something like that and you have permanent eye damage.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing a jiu-jitsu tournament like that. I had it one time. This is probably like 15 years ago or more, and I had to drive like 3 hours while like my eyes were infected with pink eye, and I just remember spraying water to clean them out continuously. I can't imagine like having to fight somebody off like while it feels like you have something in your eyeball.
Yeah, and especially because it was like super duper pink eye,
Yeah.
you know, pink eye on steroids, right?
Yeah.
Like that makes it even worse. It's like deep in your eye. So I'm like sure that like pink eye normally isn't very painful. It's just very uncomfortable because you got a bunch of stuff in your eye. But that would look painful, like your eye is like about to fall out of your skull. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, so gross, man.
Yeah, people don't realize like stuff like that and ringworm and staph can live on surfaces for like weeks, So if you're like going to an area where people are training with pink eye and staph and ringworm and they're not sufficiently cleaning everything, it's just going to remain there, like
Yep.
it's one of the most difficult things to manage as a gym owner, making sure people don't train with like funk on their skin, and no matter how much you like, hey, don't do this, people will still like disregard that and show up and train, or they will not even realize that they have like ringworm or staph on their skin. So
yeah, it's like, dude, that's not a spider bite.
Yeah.
That's not an ingrown hair. That it's getting worse. Like,
my first thing when somebody's like, "Yeah, I got bit by a spider," I'm like, "You realize you don't live anywhere near where spiders that would actually bite people live? Like how often do you run into a spider in your house? Like almost zero.
Yeah,
right?
almost never.
Especially if you live in like the city, right? So it's something different, and don't just guess that it's just a spider bite,
Yeah, go to a doctor and get some antibiotics.
Yeah.
Get on the 10 days, just rest and chill. I know it sucks not being able to train, but it's about longevity and not infecting your training partners.
Yeah, I went ahead and bought like some type of like Lamisil stuff to sell in the vending machine for when people get ringworm, because man, you got these guys that like, whatever reason, they don't wash their training gear, and so
if they don't wash it sufficiently, right?
Yeah.
They've used the dollar store detergent.
They don't wash their skin either. Like I was having this conversation with somebody the other day about like not doing the not showering, after training, and guys will go and like set sweaty as hell inside of their car. Like at least like wipe yourself down or something, but like, even on our open mat, I try to get in there and rinse off, whether that's like taking that water hose out back and rinsing off or getting in the shower. I just don't want to have fucking sweat all over me,
Yeah, and then it's in your car too, right? So like, if you got sweat all up in your car and then you go to sit down and now you got sweat from days and days and days building up. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's gross. That's so gross.
I knew guys as a white belt that would like, wear their gi to the gym, and then after training they'd like wear their gi pants and their rash guard home, like go in the grocery store and then go home and sit on the couch, and I remember the gym owner had to tell them like, hey, when you guys leave here, you need to change your clothes at the very least. Like if you don't shower, okay, but change your clothes so that way you're not putting this like funky sweat all over your seat, and then you're at home. Like that's just dirty,
Yeah, that's gross.
There were guys that were like, "Oh, I never thought about it like that,"
What do you mean you never?
Yeah.
What?
Like, what does your house look like?
Yeah, what kind of environment did you grow up in?
Yeah,
that is so gross, man.
So I think on that note, we'll end it. Don't be a dirtbag. Wash yourself.
Don't be
your
nasty.
Gym, and keep training, guys. Thanks. See you soon.
Don't be
That's a wrap for today's Kings of Kimuras episode. Thanks for joining us on this epic journey. Remember to keep training, stay curious, and always be ready for the next adventure. Until next time, keep your guards up and your minds open.